Welcome back to the Making Sense of Money podcast presented to you by P1FCU, where we tackle all the financial topics that matter the most to you. I'm your host, Tanis, and today we're going to be talking about something that may seem confusing to many, but is very crucial to setting up your financial future. We're going to be dipping our toes into the world of investment with our very own financial advisor, Brett. Welcome, Brett.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Before we jump into all things investment, I was hoping you could just give us a little bit of background on your journey and where your passions came into, wanting to help people with their finances and managing their money.
That's a long story. I started with Washington Mutual back, I'm dating myself, in 1992. And so that was my introduction to the banking financial world. And while I was working for Washington Mutual over in Seattle, I found myself spending a lot of time at the financial advisor, the broker's desk, just because kind of interested, because it was kind of exciting and fun and interesting. But I've always liked numbers, and it was a lot of number crunching and stuff. And so that was kind of my introduction. And then after about 5 years, I made a transition over to Edward Jones and into the business. And prior to coming to P1FCU, I was 12 years with Morgan Stanley. And then I moved to the Valley and landed here and happy to be here. My passion is really just why I like numbers and crunching numbers, but it's going to sound nerdy, but I really get a kick out of helping people.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to this arena, finances, it's important. And fortunately, I've been around the block a few times, so I have a pretty good knowledge base. And it's really that simple. I just get a kick out of taking some of that weight off their shoulders and helping them manage this sometimes tricky roadmap and help them come to good financial decisions that make sense for them as individuals.
Sure. I could only imagine doing what you do in the capacity that you do it is probably a lot different than being like in the Seattle area, or does it feel different?
Oh, yeah, very much so. There's certain aspects that are the same. It's the client relationships and developing that and getting to know people and learning their story. That's the same. But the day-to-day, I tell this to clients and members all the time. I've always been a small-town boy. It just took me 50 some odd years to figure it out. So what I appreciate about being in the Valley and being with P1FCU is that over there, many of you might have appointments where you see people once, maybe twice a year, face to face.
Yeah.
And most of it's done on the telephone because nobody wants to drive into traffic any more than they have to over there.
Right.
So what I appreciate about being here, what the best parts about being here are, it's the face-to-face contact. Sure, there's telephone conversations, and with the outlying areas, that's, how a lot of it's primarily done. Mm-hmm. But the day-to-day and constantly the face-to-face is, I don't think you can't put a dollar price on the value of meeting and talking to people, and it makes my job easier, and I think it brings a tremendous amount of relief to them to be able to sit down with somebody face to face and have them answer those questions or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, what it's like to have constant relationship building, which is, needs to be someone who enjoys that and cherishes that, because that's what we do and that's what we're all about. So you're the perfect person for that.
I do my best. I do my best. Yes.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who is a first timer looking to make an investment or just doesn't know where to start? What kind of advice would you give them?
That's a good question. Before I would start investing, before I would go that route, I would consider the question have you been successful at saving? Mm-hmm. And because whether it's saving or it's investing or a combination of, what I like to advise people to do, especially younger people, is that don't worry about the dollar amount so much. What you're trying to do is create those habits, those positive habits, and to build on those successes. So it's a snowball effect. It might be $10 a week, it might be $50 a month, but just get in the habit of doing that. And as far as investing is going, as much as I would like to sit down and help everyone, it's just not possible. But thankfully, the technology is there. You have the platforms and online brokerages that have tremendous technology and platforms and material and access to really, you can dive into it, watch some tutorials on YouTube, and take what they say with a grain of salt. Use me as a resource, but start there. But it's about creating good habits and building on successes. Don't worry about the dollar so much, just creating that behavior.
So a day in your life really can look as simple as, let's get you a savings account and planning out $10 a month or whatever, all the way up until, the intense, crazy retirement stuff, right? Like your day can look pretty different.
Yeah, no, and that's the cool part about it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
No, it's fun. I enjoy it.
In our world, the financial world, we often hear that paying off debt should be the number one priority before you invest. Do you agree with that, or what's your take?
Generally speaking, yes, but obviously debt comes in many different forms, like your mortgage, for example, that you have to save in addition to paying that. So, but generally speaking, I think you have to take a serious look at the debt that you're managing. If it's credit card debt, for example, that you're paying 15% or 20% or whatever the interest rate may be, you have to consider that whatever money that you're investing, you have to make at least what that interest payment, the interest that you're being charged on that card is. So if it's 15 to 20% to guarantee that you're going to get that type of return, it's not possible. So when I'm talking about revolving debt, things like that, high interest rates, yes, I agree. You have to pay off the debt. And before you even start investing, after you get that debt to a manageable level or preferably paid off, you have to start, we all need a slush fund. We all need an emergency fund. You don't want to rely on that credit card as your go-to. That dollar amount, whatever that slush fund is, it varies depending on the individual, but there's a process to do it, and the process isn't there to prohibit you from investing. It's there to, once you get to that level, you're not taking steps back to, because, your car breaks down. You need a new roof. You need a wash. Life happens. Yeah. Life's not fair. It's not always fun. Yeah. So what we do is we try to minimize, or at least try to plan for all the possibilities of what may get in the way of you continuing to successfully invest. So yeah, pay off the debt, high interest, start saving, create that slush fund, then start investing.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Switching gears a little and tackling some of the investment terms that we often hear about, 401k to start. Right. What is it?
A 401k is a type of retirement plan. 401ks are 401k plans issued by employers, companies, and it's just a vehicle that the company provides to its employees to allow their employees to plan and start saving for retirement. It's just a certain amount, whatever you decide, is taken out of your paycheck, and that contribution is made into that 401k on your behalf. You get to decide how that money is invested, because each 401k plan has a handful to 30 different investments possibly that may be available within their plan, and you get to decide how that money is invested. And I spend, a good amount of time helping people look through their investment options and provide them with a little bit of guidance or recommendations on how the funds that they may want to use for themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. This all kind of seems like buzzwords. I mean, sometimes it's like you hear traditional versus Roth.
Right.
Can you explain the difference between the two?
Yes, the traditional Roth the traditional Roth applies to the 401k plan. It also applies to individual retirement accounts or IRA accounts. You can buy a Roth IRA, put money into a Roth IRA, traditional 401k, or a Roth 401k. And the purpose of those, each of them are the same, is to allow you to save for retirement. Traditional is pre-tax dollars. So you get paid, that money, that contribution is withdrawn from your account, sent to the 401k, but it's pre-tax money. You have not paid taxes on it. But so you get an immediate tax benefit because that's less income that you're going to pay taxes on in that given year. In the Roth, it is after-tax dollars. So you're going to pay taxes, on that full amount. Part of it's going to go into the Roth 401k or the Roth IRA. The other difference between the tax consequences, whether you get an immediate tax benefit or a deferred tax benefit, is when you pull money out of that traditional, that's pre-tax dollars. So you're going to pay taxes on that money when you start making withdrawals. The Roth, you're putting in after-tax dollars, so that money grows tax-free. When you start taking that money out, it's not taxable, so it's tax-free.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's not one size fits all. That's like the moral of this story.
Correct, yeah.
Can you give us some mistakes to watch out for when it comes to investing?
I often will meet people who have been investing or they want to start investing, and they want to start systematically on a monthly basis or whatever the case may be. And the mistake that I encourage them, again, it's about creating positive and success. So, yes, we could do 500. My advice would be, let's start at 250. Again, get in the habit of doing that, having the success of doing it. Because what I don't like to happen is we go in with good intentions that we're going to invest that 500, but then life throws us a curveball.
Right.
Something happens. So that would be one area of concern. It's okay to start small. It's about creating the behavior and then grow on that. Do it for 3 months, increase it by $50, $100. And again, building those successes and get to that 500 in a reasonable amount of time. But I'd rather you start small, build up that success, become a routine part of your behavior, and then rather than maybe have some ups and downs along the way.
Right. You kind of triggered a question that I, would think that some might have, kind of switching gears from being a young person first time. Often you hear about, it's exciting, my coworkers retiring, but they're stressing out because they're looking at their retirement and the market isn't doing so good.
Right.
So what advice do you have for our soon to be retirees? When it comes time, do they just not babysit? What are their options?
It's about pre-planning. You really should start looking at your overall investment portfolio, retirement accounts, 3 to 5 years prior to your retirement. Because you're right, the worst thing that could happen is that, you retire and that day or the next day the markets drop. There's a correction, and it may not come right back. So it's about pre-planning and changing the allocation and your investment allocation in preparation, because it's a scary time. It's exciting, it's fun,
right? Of course.
But at the same time, you're right.
Yeah.
You go from 30 years of working and having an income and so on and so forth to now, you don't have that income. So you're depending upon this lump sum of money to provide for you and your family for your lifetime and your spouses and so on and so forth. So it's about pre-planning and having conversations and just slowly changing the allocation of that portfolio in preparation for that, so you're not caught due to bad timing.
Sure.
Because it can be devastating, and unfortunately, over the years, people I can't afford to retire.
Yeah.
And that may or may not still be the case because of what happens in the markets, but at least pre-planning will leave you better prepared if something like that were to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. One last question we have for all of our guests, and I think I can guess what your answer is going to be, but typically it does produce some pretty good advice. So that question is, what is one thing that you wish you would have known about money earlier in life?
What I ask people to do, because again, we live in a consumer-driven kind of immediate gratification society and world. And what I ask people to do is whatever that purchase is, if it's $1,000 purchase, and but for whatever reason, more excited about it. Oh, I really want that. I really want that. Blah blah blah. I ask people to take a step back. Consider how much do you make on an hour? What's your hourly wage? $25, which is So at $1,000 purchase, you divide that by your hourly wage. That's 40 hours. Do you want next week? You're going to work 40 hours, for example. Do you want to work that whole week for that particular product? That whatever it may be. There's no right or wrong answer.
It shines a different light on it.
It does. That would be the one thing, would be in terms of how much of your time and labor is it going to take to buy that. And again, the person might say, all right, fair enough. Next week I'm buying this, but next week I'm going to be paying for it when I work all week.
Right.
Good for you,
Yeah.
But I think it's a different way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Right. No, that's great. Great tips. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sharing all of your insights and your expertise, helping all of us, prepare for our future and learn a little bit more about investing.
Thanks for having me. No, it's fun. I can talk about, I do talk about this
I was
stuff all
gonna
day.
say.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you so much, Brett.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in. We hope you learned something new today and feel one step closer to making sense of money. Don't forget to check out our newsletter and subscribe at p1fcu.org. We'll see you next time.